Over the last week or so, the Bills have added a couple coaches to their defensive staff who I think may make a big impact in 2025. First being Ryan Nielsen as a senior assistant on the defensive side of the ball. He's a former defensive coordinator of the Jaguars, of the Falcons, someone that Babbage admitted to meeting with at the combine every single year over the last 5 years to talk shop and bounce ideas off of. The second addition is Mike Pellegrino as the Nickelbacks coach coming over from the Patriots and that defensive system. I think these two guys are going to make a big impact and really help Bobby Babbage in 2025. Everyone knows that the philosophy since this regime has taken over has been minimize the deep plays, the explosive plays down the field, keep everything in front of you, bend but don't break. And I feel like fans and analysts like myself have really grown frustrated with that philosophy, mainly in those critical moments, those high leverage moments, especially in the playoffs. And that's something that we saw creep up once again this year in the playoffs against the Chiefs. Early on in that game, the Chiefs dictated with their offense with quick passing. And that is what really the Bills would concede over the last few years. And they were okay with that. They were okay with forcing offenses to matriculate the ball down the field.
So they're getting the ball out fast, and you guys saw they're getting the ball out fast. We're playing zone, and so we've got to tighten it up. So I'm just talking generally speaking now, defensively, trying to give you guys the whys. And so when they're getting the ball out fast and you're in zone, you can sit there and go live a slow death, or you can tighten it up.
The Chiefs did it so often and so efficiently, it really forced the Bills' defense's hand. So let's dive into some of the breadcrumbs and research I found on these two additions to the staff and how they may influence the Bills' defense next season. One area that when I watched the film and then looked at the advanced metrics that I thought the Bills' defense really struggled with in 2024, and that is the quick game. Those passes that are into the 0 to 9 yard range, the 1 to 3 step drops, the passes that are out in under 2.5 seconds. The Bills defense struggled in these situations. So listen to some of these stats in those passing situations where the ball was out in under 2.5 seconds. The Bills surrendered the fifth most targets on passes under 2.5 seconds. They surrendered the sixth highest completion percentage at 77.9%, the third most yards at 1,846 yards, and they had the fifth fewest pass deflections with 18, which is something that I found very interesting, especially when you compare it to prior years. Now, if you scale back and look historically at their data in these situations on passes under 2.5 seconds, a few things stand out. First being press percentage. This was the lowest amount of press percentage in these situations that we have seen since 2018. And if you compare it to the prior 2 years under McDermott and Leslie Frazier, it was a massive drop-off. But the biggest one for me was the plays on the ball. In these situations where opposing quarterbacks were getting the ball out of their hands and you need your secondary to make a play, they did not get their hands on the ball as often as they did in prior years. And to just put it in perspective, the number one defense when it came to creating disruption, creating pass deflections in the passing game when the opposing offense was throwing the ball in under 2.5 seconds, the Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles, they led with 42 pass breakups in those situations. All of that data and all of the film really points to two things for me when it comes to opposing offenses getting the ball out quickly, where your pass rush can't really get home, but your secondary is not making the plays on the back end. First thing being the inability to properly disguise the coverage from pre to post snap, which is expected with the turnover that the Bills had on the defensive side of the ball when you're talking guys like Trey White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, those guys not being there anymore. And then some of the injuries and younger guys and inexperienced guys coming in and out of the lineup, especially on the back end at the safety position and outside at corner. If you're not disguising the coverage pre to post snap well, the quarterback is able to pick up on what coverage you're in, which means that he can get the ball out quickly and efficiently to keep the offense on track. My second takeaway is pretty simple. The defense was playing too loose. The corners were playing too loose. Offense off coverage, that base defense type of shell look was allowing the quarterback to just get the ball out to the receivers, especially outside the numbers, very quickly. They were too soft when you compared press coverage numbers this past year to prior years, especially in these situations where the ball was out in under 2.5 seconds. Now, with all of that said, how will Ryan Nielsen and Mike Pellegrino help influence or impact the defense to improve in these areas? And when I watch press conferences of Nielsen, and when I watched some breakdowns on Mike Pellegrino, I found some interesting things when it comes to their philosophy and how they may help. Specifically for Nielsen, his ability to disguise coverages on the outside. He's been known as a press man coverage defensive coordinator, but he admitted in a press conference that the fact that you think that about him really shows how well his corners, especially on the outside, can disguise their coverage, whether it's man, zone, press, or off coverage. Listen to this press conference from Nielsen from last season.
As one of our coaches would like to say, nothing cheap and nothing deep. And so when you're press, you take away the quick game, and we like to play shell, which everybody, when you look at us, we, take away the deep throws. It may look man or man-ish at times, but sometimes there's some press bail and some nuances in the coverage of that. It actually is zone with tighter coverage outside.
And that's what I love about his philosophy. His two corners in Jacksonville, Brown and Campbell, were number 1 and 2 when it came to press percentage on the outside at corner. And so that's something, again, that will help deter the quick game, as he said in his presser. It will not only deter, but when quarterbacks do test the corners outside, they will have the ability and be in proximity to make plays on the ball like they didn't do last year.
That's actually good that you see it like that, because if we're viewed like that, then we drop into zone. It could be advantageous for us on defense.
And just keep in mind, press does not mean press jam. It doesn't mean that every corner is going to be up in the face of the wide receiver, jamming them, press jam at the line of scrimmage every single play. It's getting their hands on the wide receiver early in these route stems to disrupt the timing and rhythm of the quick game. On to Mike Pellegrino. I think he shared a lot of the same sentiments that Nielsen does, and I'm sure Bobby Babich and McDermott do. He's going to be working with Taron Johnson and the nickel corners who struggled last year, especially if you're talking about when asked to play man coverage. Johnson did not have a good season at all in man coverage. It's something that he has struggled with or had been inconsistent with over the last few years, but last year he really struggled, and we saw it again in some really pivotal moments in games throughout the year. As I was combing through some of the film and analysis on Pellegrino, I found this clip of him breaking down a couple plays from cornerback Christian Gonzalez, and a few things stood out. As I talked about, I'm sure he shares a lot of the same sentiments that Nielsen does. And this is why I think he'll make an impact next year.
So first one here that we're showing is his pick from the game. Everybody's going to want to see this play. So really, just look at Christian right here. His body language, right? His body language is so important on this play to start.
The body language of a corner prior to a snap is one of the few factors for a quarterback when diagnosing what the coverage can be from pre to post snap. So the body language of having a corner in off coverage and a bail technique sends a certain message to a quarterback on what could be occurring after the snap.
Yeah, so it's going to be a cover 2 play right here. So what's he showing right here? So
this is like almost, I'd say I'm going to get cover 3 here. He's going to bail out.
Cover 3. So cover 3, right? This quarterback's going to think that he has an inside pass right there.
So the body language, the off and soft coverage, the bail technique by Gonzalez, on top of the Patriots sending the defender off the edge, alerted the quarterback that he could have a quick game pass, again, a 1 to 3 step drop under 2.5 seconds to the middle of the field.
Right, so obviously, right, he's doing a really good job disguising the safeties, the rest of the unit doing a great job behind him, right? And on the snap right here.
Inching in.
Yeah, exactly. He closes the door right there.
What Pellegrino means by closing the door, you saw the press bail open look by Gonzalez, but as soon as that ball is snapped, you see him close the door and he squares up, which changes his posture and honestly how he can react to the quick game.
He puts himself in a position to break, right? And you can see Huntley's head right here. He's checking the safeties. He does that quick 1-2 right there, right? Where am I going to go with the ball, right? And then he just decides, look, I'm going to throw it, right? I'm going to throw it. Gonzo does a great job right here, undercut. Right? Watch it on the TV copy right here. You get a better look at it. All right, so here we go. You get a good look at it. He's reading the quarterback. Good job. Quickly IDs the receiver. Right? Here he goes, working flat. Right? And that little like just check right there with that left hand. Right? He's not grabbing anything, so don't worry about that. Okay?
Believe me, I don't want holding call here.
Here he comes right through, right, and grabs the ball. He catches the back end of the ball, but it really doesn't matter, right? As DBs, we just got to catch it, right?
That's
Great
an
play.
elite play right there, driving on the ball, undercutting it.
Great concentration. Watch him get his hands underneath the ball too, right? Like that's an elite play right there at a quarterback.
So that ability to, again, disguise the coverage, to go from being off and soft in that press bail technique to squaring up, closing that door, and driving on the quick game is one area I think Pellegrino, on top of Nielsen, will help the Bills defense next year. The Bills just can't sit back and allow these quick passes to happen because they've given up big plays. They've given up a lot of yards, a lot of production. And on the flip side, they're not making the plays when it comes to the quick game. And so adding some tweaks in the coaching staff, in their philosophy, and what they believe in by playing a little tighter, maybe a little more press, but more importantly, disguising that coverage on the outside better. Not just the overall coverage, disguising cover 1 to cover 3 or vice versa, but more so at the independent level, at the player level. On the outside, the Bills need to do a better job of not just getting their hands on guys, but disguising what coverage they are going to be going to, whether it's from man to zone or zone to man. And I think Nielsen and Pellegrino will come together with this defensive staff to come up with some minor tweaks to make a difference in those areas in 2025.